How would you feel if I became a flannel guy? It's like wear flannel all the time, mainly during the fall.
Yeah, mainly during the fall makes sense. Winter as well. It's not a very spring, summer. It seems more like I don't know, pop punkish.
Yeah, it feels
to
like
stick to your guns to it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, like when I see someone in a flannel in the summer, I'm like, that can't be your identity, man. No, I got this one. I've been wearing it for like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about my look lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of like I'm so particular. I own like 7 of the same shirt, 7 of the same pant. They just happen to be different color, same socks. And I've just been thinking about like, how would I even begin to just casual it up a little bit, to kind of like, just throw in like, hey, this is a guy who'll wear whatever he's feeling that day, rather than kind of having like a uniform almost.
Yeah. I was that way. I was pretty uniform for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know, past like a year and a half maybe. I don't know, just started dressing a little different. Like when it was cold out, my place of business is pretty cold on the inside, so I just keep everything on while I'm working. Mm-hmm. I had like a hoodie and a Carhartt and a beanie and fingerless gloves, and several people were like, bro, you look homeless. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And then I started doing that without the gloves and a baseball hat, and you're like, bro, you look like a beastie boy. I'm like, I guess my look has changed. I guess I'm a different guy now.
Yeah. I don't know. Figured out. Like, I'll go to like, just the other day I went to the thrift store, right? And I found this large Gap button-up.
Yeah.
That I liked. I think it might have been extra large. It was big and billowy, kind of like Morrissey. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that'd probably be my ideal look. Kind of like slacks, slightly tight, a little more room than I have now.
Yeah.
With just an oversized button-up, tucked in, kind of dress shoes. Very, But yeah, I was like, man, if I buy this internally without actual like thought put into it, I was just like, but I started like looking through that. It's like, can I find more Gap in the same size? Like, my basic instinct is to like acquire 7 more of the same exact.
Yeah, same. My thing for a while, I guess my uniform was always either like I'd wear tight pants and a baggy shirt, mm-hmm. or a tight shirt and baggy pants. Mm-hmm. I'd flip-flop through those because I felt like both of those were a good look. And like you said, just I would change colors all the time. But I've noticed lately I've done it like unintentionally. I just wear very baggy everything, like by my standards baggy. I'll catch myself in the mirror sometimes. I'm like, what happened to you, bud?
Yeah, like I say, I wish I want to give. I think it's part of my insecurity, but I've always strayed away from straight leg pants.
Yeah.
And towards more of a taper. Because at least in my head, it makes me, I think, look a little thinner.
Yeah.
And the straight thing, usually people who are skinny, they're like, oh, the straight will make me look a little bit thicker or whatever. And exact same thing. I'm like, I don't know. It just makes it look like my thighs almost fill most of this out. I want people to know I'm not filling it. I'm not filling it out,
Yeah.
But I would like to have a little more room. When I wear pants that have more room, I am more comfortable.
Yeah.
And yeah, same thing with shirts. There was a while where I was working out a lot, and almost as motivation, I was like, I want slightly tighter shirts. And then, just at a certain point, you're like, why am I doing this? I just feel uncomfortable all the time. I'm not saying that I want to wear like the baggiest shit, but like, just go up one size.
No,
so
I
can
get that,
breathe a little bit in here, Comfortability.
I think that always sticks with me whenever my fashion choice changes. I always kind of go for a kind of put together but still messy look. Like my example now is when I'm not wearing a bunch of baggy shit, I'll wear a smaller shirt tucked in with a belt, but my pants are baggy and the legs are way, 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 way too short. Like I did that like without realizing it. I was just buying a bunch of pants, but I was wearing Converse at the time. So I was like, yeah, these come up to my shoes. That's fine. And then I would wear them with normal shoes. I'm like, oh God, these are like mid shit. What am I doing? But like even like with my facial hair, with the exception of now, I guess. But like I like to have the mustache. I like to keep it tight, but I also like to have scruff.
Yeah.
So I look like I'm trying, but not too hard.
Eating Soup Alone is a podcast hosted by me, Christopher Crumley, and co-hosted by Nicholas Johnson. We try our best to ramble incoherently about a handful of movies at least once a week.
You know who always dresses really well? Dracula.
Which one?
All of them. Let's start with, I guess, Nosferatu.
Okay. Had you seen a full-length silent film prior to this?
I had not.
No?
No, never in my life.
How was that experience? Let's talk about that just to begin. It's a little warm-up.
Biggest thing, right off the bat, people in the 20s or 30s. Which one was it?
20s. We're talking about the 20s. Yeah,
Yeah.
Nosferatu, yeah.
People in the 20s read slow as shit. Oh my god, two sentences would pop up on the screen and stay for, I'm not joking, 65 seconds.
Yeah.
Other big complaint, which we both shared, the music.
Yeah.
Felt like it might as well have been like yakety sax. Like, it was just so silly the entire time, to where at a certain point we kind of cheated.
Yeah.
And we turned the music off. We put it on mute. And then I was like, this is working a lot better for me.
Yes.
But then after a while, I was like, this is a little awkward. And you're like, bro, I can hear my blood moving. So we just found, like, I don't know, like some, like, droning. Put it out through a speaker. And that worked.
Yeah.
That worked so well.
Much more appropriate. In general, I don't know. It just depends, because I'm sure we could have found any number of Nosferatu with different orchestration. Like, it's in the public domain. I'm sure there's plenty out there, but the one that we found was definitely, like, I don't know, too clean, too stock, like you say, very cartoonish at times, like, and it didn't appropriately become, like, dissonant or creepy.
Yeah.
Like there were times where it would stay joyful and, like, silly as we, like, creepy shit was happening, and yeah, we just 100% abandoned that.
Yeah.
And in general, I wanted to see a silent film.
Yeah. There's a lot of points where people are moving quickly and it's supposed to be eerie. And what they do is they just cut out frames in the middle to make it faster, which is creepy.
Yeah, very surreal kind of.
When you hear over the top, it's like when he's like putting all the stuff on his carriage, it's just funny.
Yeah.
And that ruins it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's almost like they're trying to be fucking funny with it. And I was like, this isn't funny. But I would say, yes, I would, like, you know, perhaps, like, hey, if you're thinking about, oh, this is in the public domain, like, let's add something to it. Try to do, like, very subtle, not over the top, distorted, kind of sounds a little bit like shit, because the movie looks a little bit like shit. You know, Foley or something. Yeah. You know, that'd be nice. Or nice droning, as we chose, or a combination of both.
Yeah. Or like an eerie, not goofy orchestra.
Yeah.
I will say, even when we did have the normal music going, there's that shot, you know, he gets to the tower, meets Dracula, or is he called Dracula in this?
No, Nosferatu. They couldn't get the rights. Or Count Orlok. I think Nosferatu is supposed to be, like, the name for the monster that he is. Synonymous almost with vampire.
And he meets Count Orlok, and he's got a silly little hat on, and he's like, well, this is where you're staying tonight, I'll see ya. And then he leaves, and then later that night, he opens his door, and you just see that big shot down the hall. Nosferatu standing there with no hat, just creepy as shit. And even with that music, I'm like, ooh, that is haunting. I love that. So visually, yeah, I love a lot of this movie.
Yeah, it looks great. Count Orlok is spooky as fuck. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, vampire designs. Not necessarily my favorite Dracula.
He's my favorite vampire design.
But I think that's exactly what a vampire should look like. It should be kind of creepy and fucked up and whatnot. This is, well, while we're on the topic, I guess, of Count Orlok, criticism that's been launched. To what extent, like, you should buy into it, that's up for you to decide, because F.W. Murnau, the guy who made it, apparently was, like, a homosexual, and was very close friends with a lot of Jewish people or whatever. But there's
Cool.
obvious parallels that have been pointed out many a time by critics between propaganda against Jewish people at the time and the appearance of Count Orlok.
Okay.
You know, with the hook nose and the, you know, big ears, pale skin, long claw fingers, you know, rat-like teeth. And also the fact that the location is changed to Germany instead of London is seen as like a fear of the other, of the Jew moving in and corrupting Germany and stuff like that. So it's just something I'm giving to you. It's just a little fun, a little not so fun fact, I guess. Not so fun.
Just, it's a fact.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's just parallels. It's not,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not, that's where it stands at this point, is that like nobody thinks F.W. Murnau was being anti-Semitic. But it is interesting that like around his time is when the time that he was making this film, though, that's when those were kind of, you know, really kind of heating up in the motherland.
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Like I say, though, you know, again, F.W. Murnau, from everybody who knew him, says he was very cordial and friendly and actually had very many Jewish friends and was also a homosexual, so he would have been, you know, sensitive to the idea of being persecuted for, you know. Well, to put that bummer behind us.
Please. Please do.
Yes, so from my perspective, I wanted to take you on a Dracula through the ages, obviously. We started with the 1931 version, which we'll talk about later. And then after that, you've had an interest in Nosferatu, especially because with Kieran Eggers or Robert Eggers or whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah.
Kieran Eggers, I think, was a kid I went to school with in middle school.
Shout out.
Shout out, Kieran. I think he joined the Marines. That could be wrong. Anyways.
He'll never hear this. It doesn't matter.
Your boy from the Lighthouse is making a Nosferatu movie. You've had an interest in watching Nosferatu for a while, and then I just kind of conned you into watching all three of these films.
Yeah, I don't know how you did that, but you did it.
And, you very happily came along for the ride. So just something I guess I'll point out here, but I guess I'll bring up again in all three of them, is that there are a lot of beats that are consistent across the three, right?
Oh, I would say this is the same movie 3 times.
Yeah. There's only slight difference in, like, I guess the 1957 Hammer film, which we'll talk about, but between these two, right, you get Jonathan Harker, he's coming to, you know, Transylvania to sell Dracula some real estate. They go to London. There's the ship thing. Everybody in the ship's dead when he gets there. He falls in love with a specific girl or whatever, and spends the rest of the movie trying to get to that one girl. So I don't want to talk about the other two just yet and like what I think about these, but I guess what's your overall opinion of like this telling of the story and its differences, right? Because I guess I'll talk a little bit about it, but like, for example, Dracula 1931, it's kind of like they're holed up in the house and Dracula keeps coming and coming and coming. Like they fight him off and then he comes and they fight him off, you know, I guess, or even let's like, I'm just going to extend it to the whole thing. Like, you know, it starts with, you know, you see a lot more Jonathan Harker. It doesn't just start with him showing up in Transylvania. It shows his boss and him telling him, oh, Count Orlok wants you to come there forthright or whatever, you know.
His boss, the most evil looking man I've ever seen.
Yeah, who ends up being the Renfield character.
Yeah.
Yeah, eating spiders and flies and stuff.
Yeah,
like
I thought
that.
it was like right off the bat he was working for Nosferatu, but maybe not. I like this story, but I like bits and pieces from all three.
Yeah. This one seems nightmarish to me.
Yeah.
This one's nightmarish.
Yeah. So, yeah, this first one, yeah, he goes there because Nosferatu wants to buy a house. That's the thing I get hung up most about all three of these.
Uh-huh.
Well, not the third one because he's a librarian, but the two where he wants to buy the house across the street.
Yeah.
Bitch, you come to me. Come look at the house. I don't know why I got to go all the way to fucking Transylvania.
Yeah.
But that aside...
Always be closing. Do anything to close.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's why I'm not cut out for the realtor business.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, Nosferatu, he goes to the town, goes to that little bar, which is also in the 50s one. And he goes to bed, finds a book just by the night shelf that's like, Nosferatu.
Exposition tool.
And he literally laughs at it and then puts it down.
Yeah.
He wakes up in a dress, splashes his face with water, and then goes out to go to the the castle.
Yeah.
And these people take him like halfway there. They're like, fuck you, we're not taking you the rest of the way.
Yeah.
He's like, come on. And they're like, nope, this is as far as we go. And then he's like, whatever, and starts walking, and then a spooky carriage with a guy who looks like Nosferatu shows up. He goes, I'm taking you the rest of the way.
Yeah, the first part of this film that I just love, that's a top.
Yeah,
that's a top 10 for me.
He comes in fast motion.
Yeah, because they're pulling frames out. It looks real weird, real
really
surreal, real nightmarish.
There's one shot that they like must have fucked up. There's
supernatural speed.
Yeah, it's a supernatural speed. There's one shot that must have got fucked up, which I feel like they could fix this, but I'm glad they didn't. There's just one shot that's negative. The cart running through.
Could be the only thing that survives.
Could be.
And on a side note, I also like that the horses are like draped over. They have like cloth, like black cloth over their like heads and their bodies.
They look like they're in the clan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's creepy. And I also like how wrapped up like Nosferatu is, and like when Jonathan shows up, he just points and tells him to get in the carriage. Real creepy.
Is that Nosferatu on the carriage?
Yeah. Same with the 1931 one. The guy who picks up Jonathan Harker is just Bela Lugosi.
Oh,
like
I didn't
a weird
know that.
hat and stuff. Yeah.
But no, the negative shot. What I'm saying is, you can just flip that.
Oh yeah. Like in a modern day like restoration kind of thing. Yeah.
Or even, even back then, if you just have the negative, develop it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But still, I like it. I think it works. I like when he's coming into the castle and stuff like that. And all throughout this movie, there's just like modern horror things that have still made it to current stuff 100 years later. Like he walks through the big doors or whatever, and then the door slams behind him. Just little stuff like that. Creepy dark hallways, which could be the name of this movie. It's just creepy dark hallways. This is the hardest thing about this is probably going to be my specifics for each movie because they all kind of blend together here and there.
Yeah. Well, I will say I'm having a hard time remembering so Nosferatu attacks him, I believe, and then they take the ship together. Or not.
Maybe.
But then they end up back in London, and he's trying to protect his wife from Nosferatu, right? Does Van Helsing show up in this one? I don't think Van Helsing shows up in this one. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
I'll look it up.
Go ahead. I will say, apparently this is the first adaptation of Dracula, perhaps on film, I don't know. But or just in general, or vampires in general, I don't know, where sunlight is not a discomfort to vampires, but instead actually kills them.
Yeah.
And it does have a kind of... I feel like most Dracula movies seem to have a slightly anticlimactic ending, besides Horror of Dracula, which I think is the best one, just because it kind of like happens, right? Like they just open a curtain or like stab him in the chest, and then it's kind of over. And I feel like that's one of the weaker elements of this one. But I guess, I don't know, it's kind of cool too. Also, it's like waking up from a dream, like, and just realizing, like, oh, it's all over, as quickly as opening your eyes in the morning,
Oh, fun fact: the Renfield character on this one is named Renfield.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about this other than like it's sort of an oddity, a curiosity, right? The whole time I kept thinking like, fuck, 100 years ago we were doing this, which is pretty goddamn good, but now we have Call of Duty.
I can't find anything about a Van Helsing in this one. I do like, though, when Nosferatu comes to town and people just start dying, that it's the 20s, so they're like, it's a plague.
Yeah. I love that they keep calling it a plague. I absolutely love that.
All the doctors are like, man, there's a bunch of dead people from a plague on this boat, so let's pick them up with our bare hands and throw them somewhere. All this stuff on the ship I really liked. I thought that was
Spent a lot more time on the ship with this adaptation.
Yeah. Again,
in fact, the Horror Dracula doesn't even have a ship scene.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
This feels like cheating, but just the droning and just those long shots of the ship.
Yeah, the drone
really got me. Yeah. Or like when the captain and his first mate are throwing off the last crew member to die. It's really good. And then Nosferatu shows up on the ship and they're like, and they die. Also, something I love about Nosferatu, I like the two teeth closer together, and also I like that he bites people on their Adam's apple. Like in a way that is like physically impossible to bite someone that way with your two front teeth.
The forbidden fruit.
It's great. I love. Yeah, that's good. But no, I love it. You said it brings a more supernatural aspect to it, but
in a good way.
Yeah.
In a very good way. That's like an odd. I don't know how to articulate this point, but yeah, he's the most supernatural seeming vampire to me, because there's a degree to which, with like the oversaturation of like just having oversized canines, like just seems so casual and normal to me. This is something that's actually like, oh wow, you know. How often do you see the Nosferatu style vampire other than like Salem's Lot? You know, and I'm not going to count a little reference in SpongeBob, but like, I mean, like a legitimate attempt to like, you know.
I don't know what it is, but I was thinking about it with Horror of Dracula.
Yeah.
But like you said, the canines, there's the guy's wife who's, you know, sick and dying.
Like Lucy? Or no, Lucy's the aunt. Maureen or something? Or
something like that. But, you know, she's just a normal woman. Thought nothing much of her. And then she dies and comes back as a vampire. She opens her mouth and she has the fangs. And for some reason, I was like, hubba. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about the fangs that got me. But I was like, no, you're doing it for me now, lady.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of sexual and... all kinds of sexual undertones to Dracula, which I can't necessarily speak to. I mean, I know that people have always seen Dracula and vampires as like a very sexy thing, and
hell yeah.
And as I've said, like, you know, it's those undertones have been noticed by academia a lot. I even had a, you know, peer who was writing her senior thesis on some of like the gender roles in, you know, Dracula and stuff like that. And I can't really speak to him outside of, I remember her talking about like it being sort of a relatively understanding expression of Bram Stoker's understanding of the women in his life expressing feminism, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of an empowering thing to a degree, but it's also one of those things where it's like, I don't know how to say it other than like my understanding of what she was talking about a lot in class was like that it's him trying to like kind of like work through what they're telling him almost. But like I said, I can't really comment on it. I've never really been that aroused by vampires, and I also don't really think about sex when I see vampires. Like I almost, it's almost lost on me, the idea of it being like sexy or like, you know, even in like True Blood when they're like shirtless with like six packs and they like might as well be like doing foreplay as they're about to like suck on a neck. It's just never really like, that's just like something that's never sparked for me. If I was trying to start a car I'd just stolen, it wouldn't go.
That's something I dig about this first one. Is in all the other ones, whenever you see, or in anything, whenever you see Dracula, and it's just, he is a very suave, very good-looking man. He's got that mysterious accent, and he's a smooth talker, and you kind of like him. He's a little off-putting and a little creepy, but there's something about him that just gets you. Yeah. Nosferatu, no two ways about it.
Monster.
Fucking monster. Yeah. Like, he's a monster, but he's still a guy that, like, when you go to his castle and you talk to him, you're like, okay, he's just an odd-looking guy. And then, like, when you see him at the end of the hallway, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna die.
Well, we got 2 other movies to talk about, so if you have anything else you want to say about Nosferatu, I think I've said my piece. Like I said, it's an oddity, it's a novelty. I think people should see it. It's real neat. It's nightmarish, so odd, and it's also, in my opinion, going into the category of films that you should try watching alone, and especially with the soundtrack off and perhaps a drone. I mean, just to get caught in that like just hypnotic, nightmare-like experience that it is to see it.
This may be blasphemy, but I would like, in my lifetime, to try and re-edit Nosferatu. Put in a different soundtrack, maybe a hum, maybe a drum, maybe a drone, and also implement subtitles.
Oh, okay.
Cut out the cards. Just put subtitles at the
cards
bottom
are
while
rough.
they're talking.
Yeah, it's very foreign. I don't.
Yeah.
It's foreign to my sensibilities. It's kind of like when I'm like, man, I'm gonna go ahead and try Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah, like it didn't bother me that much, but I was like, man, I feel like this could be just a little. This movie would be probably 30 minutes shorter if you just did subtitles instead of cards. Yeah.
And it would just keep it going, and like there's a slight break in the immersion every time it happens. Anyways, overall, I mean, I don't know how to score such a classic other than to say like A. I mean, it's an A. It's crazy ahead of its time, super influential. It's still a movie that survives in like the conversation we're having.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Is it my favorite Dracula? No, but it's remarkable.
Yeah,
it's remarkable.
I really liked it. It's 100 years old, and parts of it still felt modern and effective to me. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and even more so than I'll bring this up with the next two. Well, I won't because I'm bringing it up now. But it's something about older movies that you mentioned to me. All of these actors, dead, and I've never seen them before. Mm-hmm. So there's something about it that makes it feel a little bit more real. Yeah, and like, oh, these are just people. So much more with this because it just feels ancient. Yes. It feels historical. Yeah. And it really works.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. There's something about silent films that almost feels like, something you'd see in science class or something like that. Or, or like, a History Channel documentary or something like that. And the fact that they're so foreign and also to a degree, like, people just look different now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm just looking at these faces like, fuck, I've never really seen that face before, like, nowhere. Because even when we were watching Horror of Dracula, I was like, man, the guy who plays Alfred in the 89 Batman, he kind of looks like Harrison Ford, kind of looks like John Mulaney. Like, our standards of beauty are still pretty similar to that, right? So the people in those films are kind of attractive, whereas in, like, Nosferatu, everybody's kind of fuck ugly. Yeah. And in 1931... people are a little more attractive.
Yep, they don't look like old photographs. They just look like kind of old photographs.
All right. No. What'd you think?
About the movie?
Yeah, about Dracula 1931. Bela Lugosi.
Loved it.
Yeah?
It's the best out of all three of them, in my opinion. Yeah. I love Bela Lugosi as Dracula. Yeah. I think he's great. It is very funny to hear these old movies where people are like, oh, this is my friend, Count Dracula. And everyone's like, oh, hello, Count Dracula. Like, it's not...
I had a similar experience with Horror of Dracula when they were like, could you take Mr. Van Helsing out of here? And they don't say it like you're saying it with weight. Like, you're supposed to, like, as an audience member, know what that means. Yeah, they're just saying it as if it's like, his name might as well be Peter Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. I think Bela Lugosi's great. I think the man who plays Renfield... amazing. I think he's great. Yeah. I think Van Helsing is great. Mm-hmm. And those are my biggest takeaways from this movie. Shot very well. The big stairs at the beginning with the big spider web and the three vampire women coming in, and he like floats into their room and scares them away so he could eat Renfield all to himself and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I like Van Helsing a lot. I love when they're like, I forgot what it is, but they're investigating something, and it just cuts to a bunch of scientists looking under a microscope, and it's Van Helsing being like, yes, this is vampires. Like, there's no, like, in a lot of, we talked about this, like, supernatural stuff, it's someone being like, oh, I think it might be this, but I don't want anyone to think I'm crazy, and then when they're finally like, oh, it has to be this, everyone's like, you're crazy, and he's just like, right off the bat, no, this is vampires. Everyone's like, I don't know. He's like, no, it is vampires.
Yeah, one of my first takeaways and one of my favorite things about this movie is, from what I understand, it was so hot off of the idea of talkies. Yeah. And that was such a novelty that they didn't even necessarily think to score the thing. Mm-hmm. So just so much of this movie, like, it's just like these long, surreal, dreamy shots where the camera's moving very slightly and people are moving very slowly across the frame or something, and you can just hear crickets. Yeah. Or dogs howling.
There's one scene with music, and it is when they're at the theater, and it's diegetic. Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, so for his, like, I guess theatrical and like 1930s, is like a lot of it comes off. Like, that's a realism that I just feel like I don't see often in movies. And it really does end up having a very immersive effect, which is, sort of an odd side of the sword, since the other edge is that music is added to make it more immersive, or more, whatever.
Like when you see something that's like high fantasy or sci-fi or something like that, adding music to it makes it feel a little bit more believable. But when none of it has music, you're just there. And like weird shit where like the vampire women are floating in toward him and he comes in through the window should not work, but since you've heard no music up until this point, you're just there, you're in it. It's great.
Children of the night, what music they make. I think there are a lot of really great lines in this movie too. Yep. A lot of great performances, as you've already mentioned, right? Like Bela Lugosi obviously just kills it. And it's also interesting, something else we talked about was like how, I'm going to just say it full force, a lot of this is not corny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you kind of imagine, like, oh, Count Chocula and Monster Squad, you know, it's probably all goofy because they're just straight up doing what was done. But no. And I'd even take it a step further. There were a lot of things that, like, you know, we agreed kind of people don't play into as much as I think they kind of should, right?
Yeah.
You know, an example I can think of off the top of my head is, like, all of the neat ways that Dracula is trying to, like, get people to do his bidding, right?
Like, he's going out to parties and shit. Like, normally I think when you see vampire stuff, they stay pretty much to their house and, like, spooky places outside at night and stuff like that. And they're, like, almost like a pedophile in a van being like, come on into my van. But no, he's out and about being like, oh, yes, I am Dracula. You should come by sometime. And everyone's like, you know what? I might take you up on that.
But on the topic of bidding, like, for example, like, you know, nobody knows that the young girl has been, like, vampirized just yet or whatever, and she's, like, trying to talk her boyfriend into getting the crucifix off of Van Helsing or whatever. And she basically, like, I can't remember exactly how she says it, but she basically alludes to the fact that Dracula's already visited her and told her that she needs to do this, right? Or the fact that, like, you know, he got to Renfield and Renfield was able to, like, get out and then, you know, do whatever the fuck Renfield had to do that basically allowed him to get into the house, kind of a thing. And it's just all these really cool things where, like, you don't see Dracula doing any of this. But through dialogue, there's just that this idea that he's plotting, that he's scheming, that he's cunning, that he's very smart.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like, you see him a lot at the beginning where he's planting the seeds and then he's gone. And he eventually, when he shows back up, he's just like a specter or like in a shot somewhere. And it's like, ooh, he's back.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like you said, it's just other people talking about things Dracula has done behind the scenes. It's great.
And one of my favorite moments, and I think you would enjoy it as well, is when Van Helsing observes that he has no reflection.
My favorite part
presents Dracula with that information, smashes it, and then goes to leave, and someone says something to the effect of, like, well, what are you doing, or where are you going, or something like that. And he's like, he says basically, like, I have to go. Van Helsing will tell you why.
Yeah, no.
Or, like, what I am, you know.
He goes, Van Helsing picks up the mirror and goes, isn't it strange that you don't show up in this mirror? And Dracula smashes it on the ground, looks around, and goes, tell your friends. And
yeah. And that's just badass. And that's my favorite thing about this Dracula, is he's the kind of guy that'll just look you in the eye and basically tell you, like,
oh yeah, I drink blood.
Yeah. But it's because I actually get the sense that this Dracula, more than the others that I've seen across any media, is holding more cards than you think, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I appreciate about this version of Dracula. And I would just, you know, I don't know. I'm not super familiar with every, you know, depiction of vampires ever, but I feel like we live in a time that's oversaturated with, like, the troubled and dark and brooding and sexy kind of vampire or whatever, and even, you know, slightly less frequent, but maybe more frequent, I think, to a degree, is like the kind of Salem's Lot Nosferatu thing. Not that they look like that, but just the idea that they're almost like, you know, this monstrous, like, visceral thing, or maybe they're just straight up kind of corny, like, rip-offs of, but yeah, it's just, it's kind of neat to see it, like, taken so seriously and handled so well.
Yeah, I really like, between the three of these, this one specifically, well, Nosferatu is, he's a monster the entire time.
Which I like in its own right.
Yes, and people are unsettled by him the entire time. The third one, we'll get to that when we get to that, but I feel like it sums a lot from Christopher Lee not wanting to say the lines. And also, from the get, everybody knows he's a vampire and they're there to get him. But when you see stuff like this, like at the beginning of this one, like I said, when he's out there, he's playing the game, he's talking to people, he's doing this and that. And a lot of these things, as soon as the shoe drops or someone's suspicious, it's like, oh no, well, I've got a cover story and this and that, or it's like a cat and mouse thing or whatever. As soon, like, in this movie, everybody believes he's just a normal guy except for Van Helsing. And as soon as Van Helsing brings up any kind of evidence, he's like, all right, you got me. I'm a vampire. This is what I do. But that's not going to help you at all. I will see you when I see you.
Yeah. I also appreciate in this movie, in my opinion, I like this movie's ship scene better.
I don't really remember it.
It just happens quick. It's just like two, like, constable types standing on the shore, and they're or not on the shore, on like the boat, and it's just like picture there's just like dead bodies everywhere, and they're just like, yeah, the ship just pulled up with nothing but a dead crew. And it's very just eerie and like impactful and blunt. Yeah, I like it. You hit it.
Okay. I think Renfield is great. Can't remember, Saul? Is that the guy's name in Old Dark House?
Yeah.
You remind me of Saul.
Yeah. He's got that thing where he's like, why would I want flies when I can have big, fat spiders?
Yeah, and even when he's like talking to normal people and like sometimes he's breaking it down, he's like, oh,
rats.
It's Dracula.
Hundreds of rats.
Or he's like, oh, it's Dracula.
Thousands.
It's Dracula. Dracula's making me do this. I'm sorry, I don't want to do it. But and then immediately flips the switch and he's like, I'm a vampire boy. And I'm more than like when I watch these old movies with you. Yeah, I always have to have like 1 foot in. And whether I'd like to or not, I have 1 foot out. Where it's like, okay, these are people in the 30s and they're doing their thing. But whenever Renfield is on screen, I'm like, I am hooked. I am entranced by this guy. He is so good.
Yeah, as I said, he shows up again in The Mummy. Yeah. And he does a very similar like role / performance, but it works just as well.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm sorry, but all I remember from this movie really is Dracula, Renfield, and Van Helsing. Like, I know there's the other guy there with his girlfriend, and she's walking on a balcony sometimes, but I don't really remember any of that.
Yeah, as I said, I've had an interesting experience with this film. I've seen it probably 4-ish times. I saw it once, and I was kind of like, okay, I feel like nothing happened. Then I saw it a second time, and I was like, yep, that was pretty much what I remember. And then I saw it a third time, and that was when I was kind of like, oh, shit, I actually kind of like this, and I kind of appreciate how quiet it is and atmospheric. And then this time I watched it, and I was like, oh, fuck. This is good. Yeah. And there's some good shit in here they're doing that, like, I, again, have not seen to this day, I feel like, And, yeah, so, I mean, you've got the basic rundown. I would also go so far as to say this is my favorite Dracula movie. I like I said, I love opening with the real estate agent Renfield. I guess I think I was calling him Jonathan Harker in the last one. Maybe it was Jonathan Harker. Whatever. I don't know.
No, it's different. It's Renfield in this one. It's Jonathan Hecker or something like that in this one.
But anyways, yeah, Renfield goes out there. Like I say, I'd appreciate it if Bella came blazing in with supernatural speed, but whatever. I like him going to the house, and I like that in this one it's in a decrepit house. Yeah. I do like that. I like the awkward interaction they have, right? I like that he's cordial, he feeds them, right? Yep. And then, coming to London on the ship and everybody's dead and stuff like that. Like I say, the way that I characterize this one as opposed to the other one is, I don't know, like, Nosferatu seems more predatory in the other one, but I couldn't really say a lot about, like, once you get into the meat of it. Kind of like, I don't know, I feel like they spend more time with, like, Jonathan Harker and then the castle and then the ship and stuff like that. And then I feel like the ending kind of almost seems a little rushed to me. Could be wrong, but I just don't remember it that well. But, like, this one, it feels like the bulk of it is Van Helsing knows Dracula is Dracula, and they're spending a night or maybe 2 nights, but I think it's a night, like, just trying to keep Dracula out. Yeah. And Dracula's just kind of like playing, 4D chess while they're playing checkers, kind of a thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then eventually they get the best of him and they die in the, he stakes Dracula down in the old basement. Don't like that scene as much as I actually like the horror Dracula ending more. Yeah. But we'll talk about that in a second. Overall, this gets points for some amazing performances. Excuse me. Some great writing in terms of, like, what Dracula is and what Dracula does, and some of the characters. Van Helsing, we'll just move on to the next point. I think he's got great performances between Bela Lugosi, the Van Helsing guy, Renfield, and this is just real neat. I would say, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's as strong as Nosferatu. They have different strengths, but I think they're both just S-tier Dracula stories.
Yeah, I'd say
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I'd say pretty much the same things. Beautiful performances, great writing. Love the set design. Everything's great to look at. Well,
it's something you said about the Old Dark House, I think, during the podcast, or maybe privately, but you were talking about how, like, you love black and white, but like
Yeah.
watching these, you're like, oh yeah, this is like they were trying to do something with the black and white. You know what I mean? Like
I didn't get that so much with this. I got it
Yeah.
more so with the Old Dark House. I think this one just is one of those ones that just happens to be in black
Yeah.
and white. But I love. I will say Nosferatu is scarier.
yeah,
I was never scared or like really spooked during this movie. But I think there's a lot of clever stuff. Love the scene with the mirror.
this one seems more like a thriller.
Yeah, definitely. And I will give another special shout out. Watched a lovely little documentary after this. That
Yeah.
made me like it even more with the niece of the man who
Carla Lamel or whatever.
Yeah.
Or Lamelle or Lamelli.
It's talking about the history of Dracula in theater and carnival shows, and this eventually being what's his name? Dracula.
Bela Lugosi,
Bela Lugosi was the guy who's doing it on Broadway and stuff like that.
as was Van Helsing. He was also.
Yeah. And yeah, they were just like, well, these are the best guys for the job, and they got them to do it. Also talking about the Spanish one, I'd love to see the Spanish one.
Yeah, that'd be really neat.
It was kind of like what you were saying about Scream 4. We were talking about it. You're like, I'd love to have someone like the same movie made twice by two different directors who aren't talking to each other at all. And see what happens there. This feels kind of like the same thing to me.
Yeah. Only slightly
With-
different. In the documentary, they
Yes.
mentioned that they would watch whatever they shot that day, and they'd be like, we could do better.
Yeah, it's the same sets and everything, different actors, and the Spanish crew would watch the American crew's stuff and be like, how can we do this better?
Yeah.
So it is technically a better movie, and
Yeah.
I would just love to see that.
That's what Yeah, again, overall, this is definitely like a
So my favorite of the three that we
A+.
watched.
Yeah, it's my favorite as
Yeah,
well.
same, A+.
And like I said, like just every time I see it, I like it more and more. I mean, I'm very interested also to like rewatch some of the other Golden Age, monster movies that have a very special place in my heart. Like, for example, Frankenstein. Like, perhaps maybe my opinion about Frankenstein has changed. Maybe Dracula is my favorite. But I'm gonna go ahead and curse. I don't curse a lot on this podcast, but I fucking loved this movie.
Yeah,
It's a great movie.
I'd love to watch Dracula. We got to watch all the Halloweens, spoilers,
Yeah.
but I'd like to do Frankenstein. I just said Dracula. I'd like to watch the Frankensteins.
Yeah. Well, you want to rate it at all or whatever?
Yeah, I give it
Did
an
you
A.
rate the other one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm giving them both an A.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, this is a horror of a segue, but horror Dracula, 1957, Hammer Films, the movie that kicked it off. Hammer Films becoming synonymous with color, blood, monsters throughout the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. Not so much the 50s, but this is 1957. This is Christopher Lee, and this is Peter Cushing, and this is Dracula. What'd you think?
I liked it.
Yeah.
Didn't love it. There's a lot of it that I think is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
There's gore
Mm-hmm.
for 1957 standards.
Mm-hmm.
I like Christopher Lee as Dracula when he speaks.
It's kind of a blending of the two, but much
Yeah.
heavier on the Nosferatu thing because he's so quiet the whole time.
Yeah, and you were telling me apparently Christopher Lee was like, "This is garbage. I'm not saying any of this. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna stay in here."
yeah.
and
From
see."
what I've heard, Christopher Lee, as the series goes on, especially, just was like, "I'm not going to read these lines.
Yeah,
These are not good lines."
but I think he's a good Dracula. Like I said, when he shows up, he's very cordial. He's just like Bela Lugosi.
Mm-hmm.
But he stays primarily in the house. But just like almost immediately, librarian comes. He's here to index the books. Dracula tells him. And I'd like to believe this for all three of them, but I'd like to believe that Dracula is just a pragmatic guy. And he's like, I'm a vampire and I eat people, but I just got all these books out of order. I'm gonna hire a guy to come fix these books. And then the guy cuts his finger and he's like, I'm gonna eat this guy. But unbeknownst to us at the beginning, librarian is undercover with Van Helsing to come and get Dracula.
Which I don't like.
I
It puts
don't mind it.
Dracula like almost like you had to take a step back kind of a thing. Like he's already at the disadvantage kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I thought about earlier while we were talking as I was trying to like characterize or differentiate these movies. This one, to me, not saying he's totally, but it's the most like cornered rat Dracula in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's constantly the one who's, even though there are points where they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they got Mina, I always feel like Dracula doesn't really pose a threat. Like, they have the upper hand. He's the least, like, threatening Dracula to me.
I do like, though...
Desperate.
Like, later on in the movie, they're trying to find him. They, like, go to where they think his coffin is, and it's not there. And then they go back to their house, and they go into the basement, and his coffin's in the basement.
Well, it's specifically because the maid says, "Oh, Miss Whatever told me I shouldn't go down there by any circumstance." And they both immediately go, "Oh," which is a nice reveal. I like that a lot. I do like that.
And I like that because it makes me like Salem's Lot a little bit more, because that happens in Salem's Lot. But no, I like the librarian comes. He's, you know, weirded out. There's a woman there's like, oh, you gotta get me out of here. And
yeah, that was neat. That was an odd moment that reminded me of the Francis Ford Coppola. I think no. I can't remember offhand. I think it was Francis Ford Coppola. No, I don't know. The Terror just seemed like kind of like William Castle-y, like just like stock, very 1950s stock. Like there'd be a traveler and he would stop, or he'd make it to his destination at the castle, and then some weird shit would happen at night where like a woman came up and was like, you have to help me, but she remained vague about it. Like, yeah, it is neat.
And then he runs into her in another room and she's doing it again, and she bites him in the neck, and then a door slams open and it's Dracula, and he's got blood all over his mouth, and he's got those contacts in, and I'm like, oh, this guy's scary. Like, I'm genuinely frightened of this man, more so than I was before. He comes in, picks her up, walks off. He's got that very cool cape, which I absolutely love. I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more. Capes need to make a comeback. I'm surprised they haven't.
Oh, can we pause for a second? Yeah. I was right about The Terror. Terror was, long story short, a movie. Roger Corman, who, much like William Castle, are both just movies that were directors that were just cranking out horror movies. Didn't give a fuck. Roger Corman got Boris Karloff on set for another movie, and just without a script or anything, that was like, fuck it. He's only here for 2 days. Let's shoot a bunch of B-roll, and then we'll build a movie around it later.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about this.
So in terms of being directed, it's only credited as being Roger Corman, but Francis Ford Coppola worked on it, as well as Dennis Jacob, don't know who that is, Monty Hellman, don't know who that is, Jack Hill, don't know who that is, and Jack Nicholson. Basically, everybody kind of took turns like writing and directing the thing, and at the end, you know, Roger Corman was like, fuck it, just chop it all together and make a movie, you know, put it out. And so it's just this weird, like, dissonant, disjointed fucking... The accidental byproduct is that it's very surreal and dreamlike the thing where sometimes Boris Karloff shows up, kind of. Anyways, the reason why I brought that up is because that's immediately what comes to mind with like the woman in the castle who's like, help me. It seems very like Roger Corman, William Castle, you know.
If I'm being honest, don't got that much more to say about this movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you know, like I say, like its strengths at the time were like, oh, it's in color for the first time. You can see the blood and stuff like that. And then it's kind of nice to see it in color. I think it is pretty atmospheric. I like the sets, specifically that they look like sets sometimes, like they were kind of built, like especially like the cemetery they keep going down into to check on like Lucy. I especially love when like the fog rolls in. Like I said, I'm not a fan of the fact that, like, you know, they were targeting kind of Dracula. They kind of knew this was a castle. They were trying to hunt him or whatever. I much prefer the way that Van Helsing is in the other one rather than this one where he's like, you know, this is almost the most like vampire hunter you see Van Helsing, which is interesting because the vampire hunter aspect of Van Helsing has become much more popular than Van Helsing just being sort of a doctor who's like, I think he's a vampire, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I like, you know, they get Lucy and, you know, very similar to like the Bela Lugosi one, you know, as night falls, they're like, oh, get this garlic out of here. You have to open the windows for me. That stuff works. And I like that, again, it reminds me a little of the Bela Lugosi one, the fact that like, you know, Dracula keeps coming after this one guy. He wants revenge. They even mentioned at one point, you know, and they get the guy's wife and yada, yada, yada. But again, like the things that are missing for me are just like, mainly at this point, like as disappointing as it is for me to even say, like I've seen Bela Lugosi, I want Bela Lugosi. That's kind of where I end up with it. Like, he's not cunning. Like I said, he's not seemingly like plotting. If anything, like I say, like I almost like pity him a little bit. He seems very desperate. Like he's just clawing for scraps almost. It's a very rat-like Dracula, in my opinion, you know. And that's kind of all I got to say about it. I think the biggest strength, in my opinion, is the final face-off between him and Van Helsing, when Van Helsing looks to the curtain, pulls it down, and you get that great effect where he crumbles into dust.
Yep.
And I would say my ideal Dracula film would probably be a very well-handled remake of specifically the 1931, pretty much shot for shot, but add in a death scene like that at the end. And it would have to be somebody that I really appreciate their judgment and aesthetic choices. But it'd be a blending of those two, kind of, I think, with just that ending from the other one kind of thing, and 1931.
I said this yesterday.
Yeah.
I was looking it up. The can't remember what it's called, but the movie about them making Nosferatu.
Shadow the Vampire.
And Max Schreck actually being a vampire and people being concerned about it.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe plays Max Schreck in Nosferatu. Robert Eggers has to get Willem Dafoe to play Nosferatu in this new one. I will say something that I noticed a lot during Horror Dracula, which I didn't like, but I thought was funny. I thought it amused me the whole time. There's so many shots of like Dracula and other people who like walk into a shot, and for the whole time the top half of their head is cut off. Like they're just at the top of the screen, and it's just like, hey, their head's cut off. Do you want to reshoot this? And everyone's like, but it's 5:00. It's time for all of us to go.
So yeah, that's where I'll leave that one. I think honestly this is probably like a C for me. I would say that Horror Dracula is kind of C territory. I'd
give it a C minus maybe.
Yeah.
Fun conversation I had today that relates. Remember me telling you the other day I was cat sitting for my parents, and they just had these like weird like sandwich cookies in their pantry with like some weird language on it that I didn't realize. I'm like, these are fucking great.
German.
I went and saw my parents today. I'm like, oh yeah, what are these? Where'd you get these? And like, oh,
Transylvania.
So-and-so moved out across the street. We have a new neighbor. Her name is Sabina or something along those lines.
Excuse me.
And my mom's like, she's very nice. She came over, she gave us all these cookies, and she made muffins and stuff like that. And we're like, man, you're the new neighbor. We're supposed to be doing this for you. And my dad's like, yeah, she's from Transylvania. I'm like, what? He goes, she's a vampire, and she's trying to get us to invite her in. That's got to be what's happening. I'm like, oh, is she from? My dad's like, she's from Romania. There's no way she's not a vampire. And my mom's like, yeah, we called the neighbors, and like, yeah, she brought us muffins and cookies and stuff like that. And so I'll tell your likelihood, she might buy us some more. I'm like, oh, I might get vampires.
It reminds me of one of the things I did like about Salem's Lot, which is like them coming to the window and being like, let me in.
Yep.
But otherwise, that's that, Mattress Man. If you need more soup, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or go to our website, eatingsoupalone.com. And until next time,